I pulled into the driveway sometime around 11:20 p.m., engine humming as the garage light flickered to life. The house looked the same from the outside. Same porch light glowing, same wind chimes tapping softly against the siding. But something felt different, like the air itself was holding its breath. I'd been gone for 4 days on a last-minute trip for work. Chicago. Meetings that ran too long, meals eaten alone in hotel lobbies, and a bed that never felt right. All I wanted was to get back home, kiss Kelly, and crash. But as soon as I stepped inside, that plan started to unravel. The first thing I saw was a men's jacket hanging in the hallway. It was navy blue, slim cut, and definitely not mine. Not even close. I've owned the same 3 jackets for years. None of them could pass for this one. This one looked new, expensive, stylish in a way I'd never been. I stared at it longer than I should have, like it might explain itself. But it didn't. It just hung there, smug and quiet, like it belonged. And that bothered me more than I could say. I set my bag down and closed the door slowly, trying not to jump to conclusions, but also trying not to ignore what I was already feeling. Something was off. The silence was unnatural. No TV murmuring in the background. No kitchen clatter. No faint music from Kelly's Spotify echoing down the hallway. Just nothing. I walked toward the bedroom. The door was halfway open. Inside, the lights were off, but I could see the bed clearly from the hallway light behind me. It was made perfectly, the kind of made that took time. Not a quick toss of the blanket, but hospital corners, smooth sheets, folded comforter at the foot of the bed. Kelly never made the bed like that. Not even when we had company. My stomach tightened. I stepped inside, heart thudding a little harder now. I pressed my hand to the sheets, cool and recently tucked. They'd been changed. I could smell the laundry detergent still lingering in the fabric. Not ours, though. A different scent. Fresher. Like a new bottle. She hadn't told me she switched. I walked back out into the hall and paused in front of the bathroom. The door was closed, but I could see steam curling from beneath it. The fan wasn't on. Someone had just taken a hot shower. Too recently for the steam to have faded. Then I heard it, the sound of movement inside. Bare feet on tile. A cabinet closing. The door opened a few seconds later. Kelly stepped out, wrapped in a towel, her hair dripping, mascara smudged beneath her eyes like she'd either been crying or hadn't bothered to remove it. Her eyes widened when she saw me standing there. "Oh," she said, stopping short. "You're home." "Yeah," I said slowly. "Flight landed early. I tried texting you, but I guess you were in the shower." She nodded quickly. "Yeah. I didn't think you'd be home until morning." She didn't smile. She didn't move toward me. She just stood there, holding the towel tighter around herself, eyes flicking briefly toward the hallway, where the jacket still hung, then back to me. "What's with the jacket?" I asked. I kept my voice level, casual, like I wasn't already pulling apart every inch of the room in my mind. Her expression didn't even twitch. She looked over her shoulder, gave a half laugh. "Oh, that's Mia's brother's. He came by earlier to help with the fuse box. You know how the kitchen light's been acting up? He stopped by to fix it." I stared at her. "In the evening?" He was already in the area. It wasn't a big deal. He didn't stay long. She shrugged. "Must have left it behind." "And you made the bed because?" She narrowed her eyes slightly. "Because it looked like a mess and I didn't want to climb into it like that." What's with the 20 questions? I'm just trying to understand what I walked into. She rolled her eyes and pushed past me into the bedroom, towel still tightly wrapped around her. "Jesus, Jason. You come home early and immediately start interrogating me? I just got out of the shower." "I didn't say anything about." "Yes, you did," she snapped. "The jacket, the bed, the fuse box. You've already made up some story in your head, haven't you? That I had someone over. Is that it?" Her tone was sharp, defensive, like I was the one who'd crossed a line. "I didn't say that," I replied quietly this time. "I just noticed things. You can't deny they're weird." "Not everything is a conspiracy theory," she muttered, rifling through a drawer for something to wear. "You've been so damn paranoid lately." work stress or whatever. But I'm tired of it. I didn't reply. I just stood there watching her. Her irritation was so rehearsed it felt like déjà vu. Like she'd been preparing for this exact confrontation and knew exactly how she'd spin it. "You don't believe me, do you?" she said, turning around now, fully dressed in an old sleep shirt. "You think I'd really do that to you?" "I don't know what to think," I admitted. "But none of this adds up, Kelly. The jacket, the steam in the bathroom, the bed, the fact that you look surprised to see me." "I already told you," she began, then stopped herself. She sat down on the edge of the bed, her shoulders tense. For a second, I thought she might break, confess something, anything. But instead, she looked up at me with this bitter edge in her voice. "Maybe you're just looking for something that isn't there. Maybe that says more about you than it does about me." There it was, the turn, the deflection. I was the problem now. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just stood there, staring at the woman I'd built a life with, wondering how many versions of her existed and how long she'd been showing me only the version that kept me calm. Eventually, I walked into the guest room and closed the door. I didn't sleep that night. I laid on my back, eyes on the ceiling, listening to the hum of the house, every creak, every subtle sound. The jacket stayed in the hallway until morning, like a ghost that refused to leave. And Kelly? She didn't come to check on me. Not once. That night I lay on the edge of the bed, my back to her, eyes fixed on the ceiling like it had answers buried in its texture. She was already asleep or pretending to be. Her breathing was steady, shallow, almost too even. I could hear the hum of her phone vibrating softly on her nightstand, screen dimming before I could catch what flashed. She never used to keep it face down. That was new. Everything was new lately. Her habits, her tone, her energy, like a person I knew once and only remembered in glimpses now. We'd been off for a while, sure. I figured it was stress. Her job. Mine. Life just wears at you sometimes. But now, with that jacket burned into my brain and the shower steam still fresh in the walls, I knew it wasn't stress. It was something else. The following morning, she acted like nothing had happened. Made coffee, kissed my cheek, asked if I wanted toast. I told her I had a meeting. I lied. I couldn't sit across from her while she sprinkled sugar into her cup and hummed to herself like everything was normal. I left the house and drove in circles for an hour before parking in a grocery store lot and just sitting. I scrolled through my memories like they were security footage I'd missed the first time around. The signs had been there. I just hadn't wanted to connect them. 3 months ago, she started working late more often. At first, it was once a week, then twice, then every other day. I didn't think much of it. I've always respected her hustle. But it wasn't just work. It was the weekends too. She suddenly had coworker birthday parties, team hikes, and creative retreats I never got invited to. Each time, she gave me just enough detail to feel believable. But never too much. Then came the clothes. She'd always had style, but recently it was different. Subtler. More intentional. Matching sets. New perfume, sandalwood, and something sweet. Lingerie I'd never seen, tags still attached, tucked beneath sweaters in her dresser like she didn't even want herself to find them. One night, I came home and caught her switching phone passcodes. I asked about it lightly. She brushed it off, said she was trying something more secure. That was one lie I didn't push on. But then she changed it again 2 days later. She'd also started keeping her phone in the bathroom when she showered. That never used to happen. Once, I got into her car to grab a charger and noticed a device I didn't recognize on the Bluetooth list. AC West. I asked offhandedly if she knew who that was. "Oh, some guy from the gym. I let him play a podcast once," she said too quickly. Didn't know it would save. The gym. Another new thing. She joined one across town because it had better classes but never posted from there, never mentioned a single instructor by name. Every time I asked how it was, I got vague answers. My gut knew. It had known for a while. I just hadn't had the proof. And maybe I didn't want it yet. Not really. As long as it lived in the shadows, I could pretend it was paranoia. Just stress. Just a rough patch. But the jacket changed everything. After that night, I started noticing the emotional distance more clearly. She touched me, but like she was performing affection, not giving it. She laughed at my jokes like she was checking a box. Our conversations had lost their rhythm. It was like watching an actor fumble through lines she used to know by heart. I tested her once. I told her I was thinking about booking a weekend getaway somewhere quiet, the two of us. Her smile faltered just for a second before she forced it back. "That sounds amazing," she said. "But maybe wait until things slow down at work." Always at work. She used to light up at the thought of trips. We once planned a whole cross-country drive on napkins in a diner. Now she couldn't fake enthusiasm for 2 nights out of town. A week later, she said she had to fly to San Diego for a leadership workshop. Just her and a few team leads. 2 nights. Hotel and flights paid for by the company. I didn't question it, not out loud, but I took note of the timing. Same weekend I'd originally said I might plan something. The morning she left, I helped carry her bag to the car. She kissed me like she was kissing a cousin. I smiled and waved and stood on the porch long after she pulled away. I checked her calendar once she was gone. Nothing listed. The email she showed me as proof of the workshop was just a screen she'd kept open. I never saw the full thread. I tried to remind myself not to go full conspiracy theorist, but the pattern was emerging too clearly to ignore. Thursday, late work dinner. Friday, gym until 10 p.m. Saturday, retreat. Sunday, brunch with a friend whose name kept changing. It wasn't that she was never home. It was that, when she was, it felt like she wasn't really there. One night, I asked what we were doing for our anniversary. She blinked, like she didn't understand the question. Oh, she said. I figured we'd just keep it low-key. Money's been tight. That same week, she bought a pair of shoes that cost more than my monthly car payment. Low-key. Sure. I started saving things. Not out of spite, but survival. Screensh *TS. Calendar anomalies. I wasn't sure what I was building exactly, just that it felt like bracing for impact. The next Friday, I came home to find the bedroom spotless again. Same folded comforter. Same new candle burning on the nightstand, vanilla cedar. One I hated. She came downstairs in leggings and a tank top, hair up like she was fresh from a workout. You're home early, she said. Yeah, I said. Meeting got canceled. She smiled, then busied herself in the kitchen, wiping counters that were already clean. I asked her how the gym was. Oh, packed, she said. Almost skipped it. I nodded, then walked upstairs and checked the hamper. Her gym towel was dry. Her shoes were clean. I said nothing. That night, she dozed off early. I stayed up, staring at the ceiling again, eyes burning from exhaustion and a truth I could no longer deny. I thought about asking her, sitting her down and laying it all out. But something inside me whispered, wait. Not yet. You only get one *T at the truth. One moment where the mask drops. And I wanted to make sure that when that moment came, there'd be no way out. No plausible deniability. No, just a friend. No, you're overreacting. I needed the lie to snap in half under its own weight. So I waited. Watched. Tracked. The pattern wasn't an accident. It was a map. And it was leading me somewhere I didn't want to go but knew I had to. Because if I didn't follow it to the end, I'd never know for sure. And I needed to know. Even if it broke me. It was almost laughable the way it happened. I was just trying to move her yoga stuff out of the trunk. She asked me to get it because she was running late for a class. That was it. No ulterior motive. No plan. No suspicion in the moment. I opened the trunk to grab the rolled mat and her duffel bag, and there it was, tucked underneath a half-zip gym tote, her old laptop. The same laptop she'd told me was broken 3 months ago. It wouldn't turn on anymore, she said. I'll get rid of it when I clean out the closet. Except she never did. And now, apparently, it lived in the trunk. It looked like it hadn't moved in weeks, maybe longer. The casing was a little dusty. The screen had fingerprint smudges. But the battery still held power. When I pressed the button, it hummed to life and blinked open like it had just been waiting. I should have stopped there. I should have closed the lid, tossed it on the passenger seat, and told myself it was none of my business. But it was too late for that. It autologged into her user profile. No password prompt. No security warnings. Just an old wallpaper of a beach we never visited and a bunch of folders, documents, photos, a downloads folder with names like receipt_March 22 and flight confirmation_Jan. And there, on the desktop, was an open chat window. Some off-brand messaging app I'd never seen before, still logged in. The top of the chat said, AC West. Online. And my heart stopped. I didn't click right away. I just stared at the name, hoping that somehow it wouldn't mean what I thought it did. But then I clicked. And everything that had been suspicion became fact. There were hundreds of messages. Hundreds. And not the kind you could explain away. These were messages from hotels, from airports, from Ubers taken at 2 a.m., from bars and beds and places I never knew she'd been. There were photos, hotel beds with unmade sheets, selfies of them together, smiling in ways she hadn't smiled with me in months. Some messages were playful. Some were graphic. Some were time-stamped for nights she'd told me she was working late or grabbing drinks with coworkers. One stuck with me more than the rest. He's gone until Sunday. Come over. I'll light that candle you like. I read that one twice. Maybe 3 times. She meant me. I was he. I was the calendar appointment she worked around. The background noise she muted when someone more interesting walked into her life. My hands were shaking. Not with rage, but with a kind of stunned clarity. A silence inside me that didn't even feel like pain yet. Just truth settling into place like bricks. I kept scrolling. I can't believe we pulled that off at his own house. You left your jacket in the hallway, he didn't notice, lol. When I'm with you, I forget I ever settled for him. I stopped reading. I couldn't anymore. I minimized the window, opened the downloads folder, and found flight confirmations. Not just one. Several. Nashville. Chicago. Denver. All booked under her name, some paid for by an unfamiliar card. Hotel receipts. Airbnb check-ins. Uber trips that began at our house and ended somewhere near the airport. There was even a shared calendar doc. A whole hidden life. They had routines. Jokes. Pet names. One note even listed a playlist she made for their Sundays together. Sundays she told me she was at spin class or catching up on errands. I opened her browser history. Private mode for everything after a certain date. But one tab was still open, an email draft to AC West that she never sent. It read, "Part of me feels like I should tell him. But I don't want to lose this. I've never felt this alive. With you, I finally feel like myself." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Long enough to forget where I was. Long enough to hear the faintest echo of myself breaking somewhere I didn't even know existed. I didn't take the laptop back inside. Instead, I drove to a parking lot near the river and just sat with it in the passenger seat, the screen dimming beside me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even hit anything. The betrayal wasn't loud, not yet. It was slow and thick, like molasses in my chest, suffocating in its weight. When I got home, she was sitting at the kitchen counter, sipping a glass of wine, scrolling through her phone. "Did you grab my mat?" she asked without looking up. I nodded, placed it by the door. She never asked what took me so long. Never looked up from her screen. That night, she fell asleep early. I watched her for a moment, her face calm and peaceful like someone with nothing to hide. I wanted to ask how she could sleep like that. How she could climb into bed beside me night after night knowing what she'd done. But the question felt hollow. Pointless. The answer didn't matter anymore. The next morning, I copied the messages to a flash drive. Photos, screenshot, TS, documents, everything. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I needed to preserve the truth. I needed to know that if she ever tried to deny it, I could remind myself I hadn't imagined any of it. That I hadn't lost my mind. That afternoon, I called out of work. Told them I was sick. Which, in a way, I was. I sat in my office, blinds drawn, lights off, staring at the chat history I had printed out. Pages and pages. If it were fiction, it would have been a romance novel. But in this reality, it was a burial. A funeral for every version of my marriage I'd ever believed in. I made a folder on my computer. Named it Archive. I didn't want to give it a name that implied emotion. It was just evidence now. Data. Cold, hard facts. No more wondering. No more guessing. That evening, she came home with takeout. My favorite pad thai with no peanuts. "I figured you could use a pick-me-up," she said, smiling as she unpacked the bag. I nodded. Took the food. Ate every bite. It tasted like nothing. Over the next few days, I played my role. I kissed her goodbye in the mornings. Asked about her meetings. Laughed at her jokes. But underneath it all, I was already gone. Already pulling away. The detachment didn't come from anger. It came from survival. I couldn't afford to be confused anymore. Couldn't afford the luxury of doubt. The evidence was there, printed, stacked, cataloged. A trail of digital breadcrumbs leading me straight to the end of something I thought would last forever. What shocked me wasn't just what she'd done. It was how easy it was for her. How deliberate. How calculated. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't heat of the moment. It was repeated. Refined. Routine. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. and found her sitting on the edge of the bed, texting with the screen dimmed. She didn't notice me watching. Her face was lit up faintly in the glow. She smiled at something. Typed. Deleted. Typed again. I closed my eyes and turned over, my chest hollow. The evidence wasn't just on a screen. It was here, in the room. Breathing beside me. Smiling at someone else. I woke up before her. It was a Thursday. Light had just started to seep in through the cracks of the blinds, painting soft, angled shadows across the bedroom walls. She lay curled beneath the comforter. One arm tossed across my side like we hadn't been sleeping inches apart for weeks. I didn't move. I just stared at the ceiling, counting the seconds before my courage caught up with my decision. I'd spent the last 3 nights sitting in the living room after she fell asleep, staring at that flash drive. I kept expecting something to change, for the anger to boil over, for the grief to consume me, for the urge to confront her to finally win. But none of that happened. What came instead was a strange, eerie stillness, like the part of me that once wanted answers had already accepted the truth. And now I was done waiting. She stirred around 7:30, kissed my shoulder, asked if I wanted coffee. I told her no, I had a long day ahead of me, and she didn't push. She dressed in one of those sleek wrap dresses she only wore to work meetings and sprayed that new perfume. The one I now recognized from a hotel bathroom in a photo I never should have seen. "You're quiet," she said as she slipped on her shoes. "Just tired," I replied. She smiled. "Me too." She left 15 minutes later. I didn't watch her pull out of the driveway. I didn't need to. I already knew she wasn't headed to work. Once the house was silent again, I opened the closet and pulled out a suitcase I hadn't touched since a trip I planned for her birthday 2 years ago. Budapest. It was supposed to be a surprise. A romantic long weekend in Europe. I bought the tickets, researched restaurants, even found a jazz club she would have loved. She canceled on me 3 days before the flight. "Something came up at work," she said. I didn't push. I told her it was okay, and we'd reschedule. We never did. But the ticket was still valid. I checked. Had even updated the name on the airline's website to Jason only. I don't know why I did it back then. Maybe I knew, even months ago, that one day I'd need an exit plan. I packed the suitcase slowly, deliberately. A few days of clothes, my passport, a worn-out leather journal I hadn't touched in months. I left behind everything else. When I zipped it up, I didn't feel a surge of emotion. No tears, no fury, just a strange lightness, like someone had opened a window in a room that had been shut too long. By noon, I was sitting at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, phone silenced, staring at the front door. I hadn't decided whether to leave a note. She texted at 12:23, "Running late. Do you want me to pick anything up on the way home?" I didn't reply. Instead, I turned off my phone, slipped it into a drawer in the hallway, and walked out the door with nothing but my suitcase and that envelope with the boarding pass inside. It was the first time in weeks that I hadn't felt like I was walking through fog. My Uber to the airport was quiet. The driver didn't speak much, just nodded when I said, "Terminal B." I stared out the window as the city passed by in reverse, each turn peeling me farther from a life I no longer recognized. When I got to the airport, I didn't feel like I was running. I felt like I was returning, not to a place but to myself. The person I was before the secrets, before the suspicion, before the soft erosion of trust that left nothing but fragments behind. She texted again at 3:40. "Hey, where are you? I just got home and your phone's here?" And again, 10 minutes later, "Jason, what's going on?" I stood in line at the gate while her messages came in one by one, unread. My bag felt light in my hand. I had everything I needed. ID, headphones, that tiny sliver of clarity I'd been waiting for. At 4:12, one last message came through on my backup phone, the one only my parents and close friends had the number to. She'd found it somehow, maybe through an old email. "Please don't go. Just wait. Let's talk. I'll tell you everything. I swear I will. I'll fix this. Just wait until I get back." But it was too late. By the time I took my seat, the plane had started to taxi. I looked out the window as the wheels lifted from the runway, the city shrinking beneath me into neat little blocks and highways and patches of light. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel broken. I just felt quiet. At 37,000 feet, I watched the sun set over the wing, orange melting into pink, fading into deep blue. It was the most peace I'd felt in months. Not because I'd escaped, not because I'd won, but because I'd finally stopped pretending. There's a strange freedom in walking away without burning everything down. No confrontation, no slammed doors, no shouting matches or dramatic final words. Just a suitcase, a plane ticket, and the quiet certainty that I didn't owe anyone a performance. I checked into a small apartment in Budapest's Pest Side, overlooking a row of crooked rooftops and a courtyard where someone played violin in the evenings. I found it online the week before. A quiet corner. No questions asked. Paid in full. The first few nights, I barely spoke. I went to the same cafe each morning, ordered the same coffee, sat in the same seat. I wrote in my journal. I walked aimlessly for hours. My legs moved on instinct, like I'd been carrying this momentum inside me for too long and now it finally had somewhere to go. The messages didn't stop. First from her, then from mutual friends, then eventually from numbers I didn't recognize. Most said the same things. Where are you? She's worried sick. Don't do anything stupid. She made a mistake. I didn't reply, not because I didn't care, because I knew if I opened the door, even a crack, she'd find a way to wedge herself back in. With explanations, with tears, with versions of the truth tailored to soften the facts. And I didn't want a softer truth. I wanted silence. And I had it here. The apartment smelled like clean linens and old wood. The neighbors didn't speak English. No one knew my name. I wasn't Jason the husband or Jason the guy who disappeared. I was just a guy with a key to a door no one else wanted to walk through. For once, I didn't have to be anyone for anyone. 3 days in, I opened her final message. It was long, rambling, apologetic in tone, but not in substance. She said she was scared. She said she'd gotten lost. She said the affair wasn't about you. She said I pulled away first. She said, I didn't know how to talk to you anymore. She said a lot of things, but never once did she say the word sorry. Not once. I closed the message, deleted it, blocked the number. Then I walked to a bookstore and bought a cheap paperback novel in English. Something about space travel. Something far away. I sat on a bench by the river and read half of it before the sun dipped behind the buildings. I didn't cry. Not once. Grief isn't always loud. Sometimes it's just space. Space where a person used to be. Space in your bed, in your chest, in your future plans. She'd filled so much of my life that it felt almost surreal to see it so empty. But it was mine again. Every hollow inch of it. No shared calendars. No quiet lies. No, I'll be home late. Just me. In a city she'd never see. Living a life she no longer got to be a part of. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted peace. There's something strange about living in a city where no one knows your name. In the first few days, it felt like an echo chamber. My thoughts were louder, the silence deeper, the weight of everything I left behind humming in the corners of the small apartment I'd rented. The place was barely 2 rooms. A bedroom that faced a cracked courtyard and a living area with a kitchen that smelled faintly of garlic and dust. But it was mine. It didn't carry her scent. It didn't echo with her voice. There were no reminders, no accusations in the walls. Budapest wasn't supposed to be an escape. It was supposed to be a gift. I'd planned the trip when things were still good, at least when I still thought they were. I'd seen a photo online of the chain bridge lit up at night and imagined us walking across it, her hand in mine, wrapped in a scarf, laughing about something unimportant. Now, the bridge was just another thing she never got to ruin. I spent most of my time walking. No plan, no map, just moving. I'd wake up early, drink bitter coffee at a corner cafe where the barista barely looked up, then step outside and go wherever my feet wanted. The city was beautiful in a quiet way, worn but graceful, like it had survived its own betrayal and chosen to keep standing anyway. I respected that. Each day bled into the next. I filled notebooks with half-thoughts, overheard conversations, bits of dreams I couldn't shake. I wrote things I didn't have the courage to say out loud. Things like, "You made me question my own sanity," and "I still check the time in your time zone, even when I hate myself for it." She kept writing. First, short texts from random numbers. Then long emails. Paragraphs that started with, "I know I don't deserve this," and ended with, "But please, just talk to me." They all blurred together. I didn't respond. I wanted to. There were moments when I hovered over the keyboard, fingertips resting on the letters, thinking maybe if I just said something, anything, I'd finally feel that cathartic release people talk about. But I knew better. Words wouldn't fix what action had broken. Then one day, a new email showed up. Subject line. You should know what he said. The sender wasn't her. It was him. AC West. First, I thought it was a sick joke. I stared at the screen for a long time before I clicked. The message wasn't long. Jason, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. And I don't expect forgiveness. But you deserve to know the full truth. She told me you were emotionally cold. That you never listened. That you controlled everything from her schedule to her voice. She said she didn't feel safe. That you were angry. That you could be cruel. I believed her. I see now that was a mistake. I'm sorry for my part in this. I thought she was escaping something dark. I didn't realize she was creating it. I read it once. Then again. Then I closed my laptop and didn't open it for 2 days. That was the part that broke something new inside me. Not just that she cheated. Not just that she lied. But that she'd built a version of me in someone else's eyes that didn't exist. It wasn't enough to betray me, she needed to rewrite me too. Suddenly, the gaslighting made more sense. The way she turned every question into an accusation. The way she made me feel guilty for noticing things. She hadn't just lied to cover her tracks. She lied to justify them. And he believed it. That's what stung. This stranger thought I was a monster because she needed him to. I sat with that for a long time. I looked back at old messages, old photos, old moments when I apologized for things I hadn't done just to keep the peace. And I started to see the pattern. The way she shaped narratives. The way she twisted silence into *P***NS and affection into currency. It wasn't just infidelity. It was manipulation. She needed me to be the villain. So she could be the victim. That night, I stood on the balcony overlooking the courtyard and thought about writing back. To him. To her. To both. But I didn't. Instead, I pulled out my journal and wrote. Let them sit with their stories. I'm not giving them mine. That became a rule. No replies. No explanations. No justifications. Let her drown in the narrative she built. Let him wonder who I really was. They'd never know. But I did. And that was enough. The days after that were quieter. I started going to the same cafe every morning. The barista learned my face, if not my name. I read books from the little corner shop down the street. I wandered into museums, sat by the Danube, watched kids play soccer in uneven courtyards. I bought a cheap film camera. Not to capture the sights. To remind myself that I still had vision. That I could still see beauty without her. That my lens didn't have to be filtered through her anymore. Sometimes grief is loud. But sometimes it's just space. Empty drawers. Cold coffee. The absence of shared laughter. I didn't miss her. I missed the version of her I thought was real. And that version was gone long before I left. One afternoon I got a call from a mutual friend, one who didn't know I was gone. They sounded surprised. I picked up. Dude, where are you? Out of town, I said. Taking some time. There was a long pause. Then, she's losing it. She's telling everyone you ghosted her. That you abandoned her out of nowhere. I closed my eyes and smiled bitterly. Of course she was. She's crying a lot, they added. Telling people you were cold. That you refused to communicate. I almost laughed. It wasn't even rage anymore. Just predictability. Did she mention the affair? I asked. Another pause. No. Not once. Yeah, I said. I figured. They asked if I was okay. I told them yes. And for the first time, I almost believed it. After I hung up, I stood in front of the mirror in the apartment's tiny bathroom. I looked older. Or maybe just clearer. There were lines in my face I hadn't noticed before. Shadows under my eyes. But there was something else too. Something steadier. I didn't recognize myself. And that felt like progress. That evening, I walked across the chain bridge at sunset. Alone. Not in pain. Not in mourning. Just quiet. I stopped halfway across, leaned against the rail, and watched the lights flicker on across the city. I thought about what I would have said to her if I ever replied. I imagined writing. You didn't just break something. You erased something. You stole the part of me that believed in us and replaced it with doubt. But here's the thing. I'm still standing. Still walking. Still breathing without you. But I didn't write it. Didn't send it. Didn't need to. Because she doesn't get to know how well I'm doing without her. She doesn't get to know that I've learned to smile again. That I've made peace with the silence. That I'm rebuilding something stronger than what she left behind. She doesn't get to know any of that. Because this chapter? It's mine now. I came back 1 month later. Quietly. No announcements, no warning. I didn't go home. I didn't even drive down our street. I went straight to an attorney's office I'd found online, someone with sharp eyes and a sharper reputation. I handed over the flash drive, the folder of messages, the receipts, the calendar screensh asterisk ts. I didn't need a messy trial. I just wanted it over. She'll sign, I said. Trust me. And she did. No fight. No counter. No speech. When the papers came through, I signed without ceremony. No final talk. No last plea. It was surgical. And when it was done, I didn't cry. I didn't drink. I just stood in the parking lot afterward, staring at the blue sky and realizing I felt nothing. Just clean. Empty. Ready.